that you've been described as reality TV's Hitler.
Yeah.
And would you say, are you the most controversial person in Britain?
No.
Who is
not
then?
at all. Oh, I have no idea, and I wouldn't be at all interested to find out. I think it's a sort of idleness. Labels are typically an idle thing, but calling someone controversial is particularly idle because it just allows you to say, well, what they're saying is mad, so I can ignore them. So it's very handy for someone on BBC to say, introducing the controversial Katie Hopkins, because already then they've distanced themselves. Already they've let the audience know you can disregard this bint because she's a nut job. And already they've cleansed themselves. And I find that very, very lazy. And I would routinely call interviewers out on that by saying, that's just idleness. You invited me on here because you want the views. Here I am. Do you want me here or not? The other thing
I would say, when it comes from me, I know that I'm a very controversial figure in that sense as well.
You've been given the same label.
Yeah.
But I also think one of the beauties now of having been around for so long, 20 years in the public eye, 25 nearly, is I've stayed really consistent. So I have held a very authentic line that is my true path. And people have realised that, well, hold on, if she was just being controversial, let's say tomorrow I was a new face and I said, I'm getting the NHS to pay for my new tits. One of the things they say on Good Morning TV for a bit of rage. That lasts 5 seconds. People are outraged. Why would the NHS buy that woman new boobs? And then they go away. I haven't gone away. And that's been a really fun thing for me. And I take no pleasure today in watching Mail Online, Daily Mail shedding all of my ex-colleagues, The Sun shedding staff, fast. The BBC currently is non-viable as a business. It can't operate because it doesn't have funding. Yep. Sky News just folded. There's no pleasure in watching all of my old bosses fail. But it is interesting that I'm still going.
When you say there's no pleasure, how much do you mean that?
There's no pleasure because actually, I like the idea that there's lots of different news organisations. I like that Mail was out there doing their thing, The Sun. I met some, I worked for some good people during my time there, and their choice wasn't really to get rid of me. They just had no choice. So, but I think things are changing so fast now. And this new nimble, agile podcast, new media stuff. I know, look at you in your swanky studio.
Swanky studio.
You're so posh and fancy.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's very nice.
And but with this sort of...
You're like a grown-up. There's a plant.
There's a plant.
So there's softer lighting.
I've come to realise after some time that the plant is real, and so we have to water it. I thought it was fake. But, that's the thing. Well, the reason I ask is because I do take... I wouldn't say I take no pleasure in some of those channels not doing well. And I don't have the personal relationships you do with those people, so I understand what you're saying. I take a tiny bit of pleasure in going, so this kind of ideological drive you went on, this cowardly, contemptible drive you guys went on isn't actually very good for views, and people don't trust you guys.
Yeah, and I would say that exactly that. I'm not really taking pleasure in them failing, but I do take a great deal of pleasure in our side winning. And by that I just mean ordinary people using their own eyeballs to decide what they want to see, what they don't want to see, what they're interested in and what they're not. And I guess that would be applicable today with your podcast or anyone's, is, I very much say to viewers, if you don't want to listen or see, or it's just too awful for you to imagine me or any other guest, you see that little thing in your hand, there's a button on there, and it's a stop button. People own choice. We need to go back to owning all the things, owning risk. If I'm going to do this, it's on me. If I screw up, it's on me. We need to go back to owning risk, and we need to go back to owning choice. And that's what this really ultimate struggle is about, is the government trying to say, we'll do all of that for you, just come and live under us. Or us saying, no, we're individuals, sod off. And obviously I'm massively in the we're individuals, sod off. Yeah.
One of the things that you've been... maybe reassessed for in recent years, and I think you're alluding to that. I know Tommy Robinson has been a little bit reassessed in recent years, is the issue with Islam in this country. That 10, 15 years, it's weird actually, 15 years ago, Stacey Dooley was able to make a BBC documentary that everybody's forgotten about, where she went around her town going, look at all the Muslims, I can't believe it's a Muslim. And the Muslims going, you're dressed not well, you look like a slut, you called me that. That was going on. And now the BBC, not in a million. Then there was like a 10-year period of, no, But back in that State of Duty period, there was like Obama was saying, we're going to deport people. And Clinton's was saying, we're going to deport everyone. Then there was this sort of 10-year period of like, anyone who mentions immigration or those things is now a bigot. But is it sort of changing the last year or so?
Yeah, and that's a really strange thing to see is... So Elon kind of came along and blew the roof off. So he kind of got a hand grenade and threw it into the pot, and it just detonated and just took the lid off everything and made it so that you could say this, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, very typically, everybody and their son was out there saying, well, I was the one that was calling this out. I was the one. And you're like, were you? I didn't see you. And I'm producing headlines from 2014 where, The Guardian, Katie Hopkins arrested for suggesting grooming gangs are majority Pakistani Muslim men. Simon Danstuck, cuck, whatever, reporting me to Manchester police, me being arrested for saying it's majority Pakistani Muslim men who are part of these grooming gangs, me being arrested for even tweeting that 10 years ago. And now look at it. You cannot get enough boys coming out saying, I was the one calling this out. And so that's a glorious thing because people are speaking out. There's a decade, well, it doesn't really matter for me, but a decade later, suddenly people are speaking. And personally, of course, for me, Elon Musk, did me a tremendous favour. So Rachel Riley, the Muslim Council of Britain, and the Centre for Countering Digital Hate Online, those three organisations walked into Twitter HQ, as it was, and had my account removed. And Elon Musk reinstated me and Tommy on the same day, Guy Fawkes Day. And that was, that was quite a moment for me because that was blowing the lid off my world and saying that I'm now allowed to breathe again. And so it's proven to be true.